Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Political Patriot. Yep, no picture in the picture available. I know. Maybe when I can afford to pay for this thing instead of just using the free service. So y'all could help me with that, help me get monetized, get me some more listeners. I try to post and spread stuff around as much as I can. What the hell is that? All right. Wrong button. You can tell I'm really good at this, right? I can't even work the TV. So definitely I need to be in the business. The pool thing's going. Keeping my pool clean. Ginger ale, 0 sugar. I am somewhat ready for today. I'll watch Alabama and Auburn. That'll be a pretty good one. Okay. Now, get down to business. Today, I am smoking the Macanudo Gold Label. For those of you that might want to get into cigars, try a few, heard about, oh my God, they'll make you sick, all that kind of stuff. Well, some of that's on you, how fast you smoke it, but also which cigar you pick. A really good rule of thumb is the lighter the wrapper, the milder the stick. Doesn't always hold true, but generally it's a mild stick if it's a light wrapper. And if you go to a cigar lounge, cigar shop, and the people there, the guys, they know what they're talking about. Well, and ladies. I think I've been in a few with some lady employees. But they can help you out. Just say, hey, I'm just trying to get into this. I'd really like to give it a try. I don't want anything, it's going to make me sick for 24 hours. They'll put you in with something like this. An Olive, Series O, Series G, and those are typically the ones that I've smoked have been shorter. They've only been about like maybe that. So you don't have to commit a lot of time to it. You get to get your feet wet without, going nuts. But anyway, it's up to you. I mean, I love it. I've been doing it for 20 years. I know a lot of people go like, oh, you shouldn't be looking on the end of it before you cut it. I always do because I just think it makes it easier to cut. For me, you'll find there's a lot of these things that when it comes to cigars, is personal preference. And this is one of those things. I prefer a V-cut. And I have a Cassetti multi-cutter that will do guillotine or V-cut or punch cut. Just punch a hole in the end of the cigar. Everybody has their own opinion as what's best. A lot of guys just prefer the old straight guillotine cut. I like the V-cut. Just me. And I'm pairing. The whiskey guys are going to be on me too. Crown Royal Salted Caramel. I think I was drinking this maybe last weekend when I did this, or maybe during the week. I don't remember. I was off basically all week, except for yesterday. So I did a little live streaming basically every day, hoping that the exposure would be good for business. You know what I mean? Rocky Patel, Envoy. We're about to get into the meat of the thing. Why you're all here? Why I asked you all here today, but just step at a time. And don't bury your cigar into the flames. You'll overcook it. I'm just barely touching the end of it. and actually probably more pulling the flame when I draw on the cigar, pulling the flame into the stick. So anyway, all right. Now what we're here for. As I said, howdy folks. Welcome to the Political Patriot. I'm your host, Brent Elrod, broadcasting from the beautiful Republic of Texas. There's just a few high wispy clouds. It's right around 60 degrees, maybe upper 50s. You know, I got just enough for a little jacket. And it's a place for me to put my mic. I hate this thing up. I hate doing it up here, and I don't like pinching the shirt up, and I'm just picky. But I don't have any Political Patriot shirts made yet. So maybe eventually. I think I've got a pretty good logo, you know, so. All right. As part of what I was going to say here is that I'm, you know, really going to try and be more focused, you know, but I've already like bird dogged all over the place. But I am going to try to get a little deeper into the things that I'm saying, not just, you know, it's been pretty high level thus far. I'm really kind of getting used to this genre. I'm used to cigars and spirit pairing stuff. As I've said, I think the last 3 weeks in a row. Anyway, I'm going to spend a little time today analyzing Harris's loss now, basically 3 weeks in. I really think it didn't come down to just one thing. It was a combination of things. And I don't really think that the Democrats have, I don't think they've learned their lessons yet. The lessons are there. They just haven't bothered to read them. Hopefully they will learn as they and can get more insight into what went on as the weeks and months go on. But you know, I'm not really so sure that they will get there. Now, of course, first and foremost, Kamala Harris was basically an empty pantsuit. She never really had a platform of her own, what she stood for. Part of that is that if people knew what she was for, they wouldn't vote for her. Just the hardline left base. And as much as they tried to say that the Republicans were in a time of transition and pulling apart because they had civil wars going on inside the party back during the Tea Party thing, that's really what's happening now. You're getting more and more of these like far left people like AOC and Tlaib and the Somalian woman up in Minnesota. It used to be just Bernie Sanders, and everybody always talked about crazy Bernie, you know? It was just him. But now there's people that are actually left of him. Kamala Harris was one of them when she was in the Senate. But, you know, I heard Hakeem Jeffries out this week, and he was talking about like the news media wouldn't give her a fair shake, or I don't know, something like that. And I'm like, dude, you lost at least another 10% of African American males. Nearly 30% voted for Donald Trump. You're not learning your lessons. And that was why she couldn't tell you. I had to look see what the pool level was. That's why she couldn't tell you what she was for. There were a lot of people that were interviewed leading up to the election and then during election day, and even just a few days after, asking, you know, who'd you vote for? And they'd be, well, you know, I've been a Democrat, or I've been an independent, and I didn't really like Donald Trump, but I just had no idea what Kamala Harris stood for, and I just couldn't vote for her, not knowing what she stood for, because I know the last 4 years have been tough economically and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, they were just like, I am or I have voted for Trump because he'd already been president once. Other than the whole COVID disaster, it was a pretty good presidency. Man, it's about to come up out of the pool and start cleaning up the backyard. Uh, now, she tried to present herself, project herself as this big candidate of change. And the way she tried to slight that was it was a change from Donald Trump. But while the American people may be in a little bit of oblivion sometimes, they knew that she was part of the current administration, and the current administration was a complete dumpster fire. Uh, I don't even know who's running the country right now. I know she's actually back, and she's been out on a little speaking tour saying it wasn't her fault, it was everybody else's fault. But I don't know about Biden. I guess he's in Hobo Beach or whatever it is out there, sitting with his feet in the sand. It's pretty cold up there right now. Maybe snowing. He may not be on the beach. But I will say this one's a little tight, a little bit of a hard draw, even with this large V cut. Uh, oh, and there's some really good, like, notes of cedar and leather in here. Not really much spice at all. Really nice aged tobacco. Yeah, this is a really great stick. It's a great stick to have around. Macanudo is one of the names that is kind of synonymous with premium cigars. And you can usually pick these gold labels up as a 5-pack at JR Cigars or Cigars International. I'm actually an affiliate for JR Cigars. So look for a link to get to JR, and you can maybe pick you up a 5-pack of these. You never know. Or maybe a 10-pack, whatever. Anyway, but she portrayed herself as the underdog, which she kind of was, but she was the closest thing to an incumbent that we had. And, she would get tossed these softball questions that her handlers probably had rehearsed the answers with her dozens of times. Like when she was on The View, and they're like, well, tell me, is there anything that you would have done differently than Joe Biden? No, I can't think of a thing. Well, wait a minute. You say that you're the candidate of change. See, they didn't ask that question. That should have been the next logical question. I'm sorry, I'm sniffing a little bit. I went to the gym this morning, and when I came out and got in my truck, and after I got on the road coming home, I sneezed like 6 times, and my nose has been running ever since. I took 2 Benadryl earlier, but I may have to take 2 more. Some people, my wife included, they make them, she takes those, and it's just like, they don't bother me. But anyway, and only about 30% of the people, maybe even less than that, thought that the economy was okay or good. Everybody else is like, no, it's terrible. We're dying. We're suffering. And she was part of that. She was vice president. The economy's in the toilet, and she couldn't tell you that there's anything that she's going to do different. So you would just be inheriting more of the same disaster. So it may kind of get me off into some other rabbit holes, but I want to stay focused here on the reason that she lost. One was the empty suit. She doesn't have a plan. She didn't have the only, most presidents, Trump can tell you, he could sit down with Joe Rogan for 3 hours and talk to you about what he's about. She couldn't sit and talk to you for 5 minutes about what she's about because he didn't know. She didn't know. I don't think her handlers knew. David Plouffe, whatever his name is, he came from some pro-immigration group and became her chief campaign manager. So you know what he's thinking. Get more people in here. And the number one, number two reason, depending on which poll you were looking at, as to which was more important: immigration and the economy. That was it. And the economy / inflation. You know, in the 4 years that the Biden administration has had, they have allowed 8 to 9 million people into this country, crossing the southern border. And they have they've flown in for the last, we don't know for sure how long, but about a year. They've been flying in 30,000 a month. They go pick them up. It's not enough that they'll walk across the border. Oh no, we'll fly down and get you and bring you back up here. Do they do anything to make them legal? No. They just land them, turn them loose. It's kind of like going out and capturing animals and taking them to the zoo. You know, you go out and catch an elephant and put it in the zoo. Go out and catch some gazelles and put them in the zoo. That seemed to be all that was happening. And were they coming from places like Singapore, India, Taiwan, Japan? No. Colombia, Venezuela. Yeah. And then they just turn them loose. All right. Come back in about 5 years. That's when your hearing's going to be. Wasn't letting that drop in my lap. So anyway, but we're talking about when you add the cross the border, flown in, and the ones that come in on like visas, you know, work visa, school visa, whatever. You're talking like 12, 15 million people in 4 years. We can't have that kind of influx of people in that short of amount of time and expect everything to go smoothly. Not to mention the fact that these are people that are coming here illegally. But we bring in, or we allow in legally, like 1 million people, 2 million people a year, something like that. And they've done it the right way. They've gone to the consulate in their country and they've filled out the paperwork and they've waited the time and all that kind of stuff that they've had to do. That number is not an arbitrary number. That number was determined. This is how many people you can let in, and the country be able to assimilate those people, housing, jobs, schools, all that kind of stuff. Because when you start bringing more people in, that starts weighing on your infrastructure, your hospitals, your schools, jobs, apartments, all that kind of stuff. And so you have to try and catch up if you're bringing in more than that. And they don't care, because it's not about bringing the people here. It's about bringing in new voters. Hang on just a second. Mrs. Political Patriot is texting me. Give me just a minute. I always stop everything when Mrs. Political Patriot. I'm recording, but give me a minute. Okay. She is the love of my life. I say this all the time. Don't know what I'd do without her. But anyway, we get overburdened. And the Biden administration, their philosophy has just been, just give them all kinds of money. So they give them debit cards with $3,500 a month on it, and they give them housing. They put them up in $1,000 a night hotels in New York City, and all this stuff that they give them. And some or most or a lot, whatever, these people work too. That is really why they were supposed to have came here, right? So they could get a good job. Well, what do they do with the money they make? We give them like, $10,000 a month. What do they do with the money that they make? I can tell you what they do with it because I've seen what they do with it. they send that money home, back to their home country, to the mother and father, aunt and uncle, whatever they got back there, they send money back. So they're living off of our tax dollars and sending the money they make back home. That's not helping our economy. And the money that they're spending is our tax money. So that's not helping us out any, other than the fact that it's now out of the hands of the government, I guess. But yeah, this has been quite a few years ago. But I lived in Memphis, and this was back before all the PayPal and all that kind of stuff. You wanted to get anything anywhere, you pretty much had to get a cashier's check or a money order or whatever and send it in by the mail. And so there'd be things that I need to send out on Sunday. There was only one post office open on Sunday, and that was actually down at the airport between the runways. Yeah, between the runways. There was one road that you turned off the street, and you went right down between the runways to this post office. And on Sundays, there was a line out the door of Hispanic people all sending money orders home. Yeah. Now, you know, my Mrs. Sticks and Stones and my oldest daughter are teachers. And it is really a tale of two schools in the same district. My wife's school is it services the way they're set up here in Texas in the larger areas is they're neighborhood schools. So you just do the little neighborhood around the school. Well, my wife's neighborhood there is so Lawler Park and Rich Woods. It's called that for a reason. And there ain't no trees. Her school is 72% Southwest Asian. Those kids know more than the teacher knows. They start tutoring their children at like 3. There is no, they'll actually ask her, what do we need to study for the gifted and talented test? There's nothing to study. You're either gifted and talented or you're not. Oh no, they're prepping them, making sure, because it is expected. Needless to say, the basketball team and the football team are not very good when you get up into middle school. But the debate club and the chess team are awesome. My daughter's school, though, is predominantly Hispanic. And so she's really great in math. She's a math teacher. She's teaching these kids. Then she has an interpreter in the room that regurgitates everything she says in English into Spanish for all the Spanish kids that are in her class. Then she has a couple of special ed kids. They have their own teaching aid, and they have to, for lack of a better term, they have to dumb down what she says that these kids can understand. So you got 3 people in the room saying the same stuff in different languages, different, varying levels of complexity. It is utter chaos. She is also girls coach for volleyball and basketball, and she loves that. I don't know if she may want to try to move to a different school where there's not quite as much Espanol. But anyway, well, that kind of thing is exactly what Kamala Harris stood for. It is. Throw open the borders and let them in. She didn't care. And now, since Trump has won the election, he has spoken with the new female president of Mexico, and with, I think yesterday, Justin Trudeau was in Mar-a-Lago. And they're both kissing the ring of the new Pope for North America, because they know he's serious. I will slap 25% tariffs on you if you do not shut the valve off and letting these people in. Mexico is supposedly already starting to turn people back at their southern border. Those Old Spice commercials are the body wash stuff. There's a little creepy. Yeah. So, but what they're hoping for is that they can get enough people in here that they can sway the elections by eventually making all these people voters, giving them millions of our tax dollars, and then they, in return, they'll vote Democrat, which is, that's a reasonable expectation if you think about it. You're going to bring these people in from these countries where they have nothing, and you're going to shower them with money, more money than they've ever seen, even though by our standards, it's not a lot, but to them, it's a fortune. And then you're like, look, all you got to do is just vote for the person that has a D beside their name in parentheses. That's all you got to do. You know they do it. But the people that are here legally, they reject that. They rejected that resoundingly during the election. The Cubans have been doing it for a while because they escaped from communism, and they're like, we sure as hell ain't getting that here. But that's their goal eventually. And it's the same thing you hear about them talking. I'm ad-libbing some of this. So anyway, they were talking about how they were going to pack the court. They were going to blow up the Supreme Court from the current number of justices they have, and they were going to put like 11 or 13 or whatever. And their whole goal was, we're going to expand the Supreme Court with just enough positions to put us back in the majority. Because right now, the more liberal justices are in the minority, which is the first time, maybe even since I've been alive. I don't remember them ever having, not having a majority. So anyway, but I know a lot of, and that came from the fact that, unlike most presidents, Trump had the opportunity to seat 4 in one 4-year term. It has happened before, but is very rare. 1 4-year term. So, I had talked about how I didn't think that anything would ever happen with Roe v. Wade, because I'm like, number one, you got to have a majority on the Supreme Court that will vote, that will just decide a case your way, or you have to have a constitutional convention and have it added to the Constitution. And that not only has to go through the Senate and the House, but it also has to go through all of the state legislatures. That wasn't going to happen. But Trump got to name 4. So I was a little wrong there. I'll admit it. But I do think what's happened to it now is the way it should be. It's back with the states. Some states are coming down hard on it. They're basically, outlawing it. But there are already cases that have been decided and now appealed where states have done that, and they're starting to work their way through the court. And eventually, I foresee it not being banned anywhere, but states will have a certain set of guidelines that they have to adhere to. They can't, just outlaw it completely. I think South Dakota or North Dakota had basically not only outlawed it, but would criminally prosecute and revoke their medical license of any doctor that performed one. So that's already gone to court. The judge has already said this is unconstitutional. The state's going to appeal it. Eventually, it'll get to the Supreme Court, I'm sure. So anyway, but now onto the economy. I heard somebody explain one time that we really need both Democrats and Republicans in the government, elected government, because they are two different kinds of people that have different specialties. I don't really know how you'd say that, but they have a peculiar set of skills. Liberals tend to be more the creative people. If you think how many actors, entertainers, all that kind of stuff are actually conservative. Chris Pratt, Sylvester Stallone, Clint. Literally, it's like you could count them on two hands. All the rest of them are just hard left liberals, but they're the creative people. And so when you think about like creating things, well, you got Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. Those, they're again hard left liberals. So they're the ones that can come up with the stuff like Microsoft, Windows, Facebook. But Republicans, conservatives, tend to be the more managerial and money conscious. So they are really good at running something. They're just not good at inventing what that something can run or can sell. You know what I mean? So they're great innovators, but they need the Democrats, liberals, but they need somebody that can run it and make it work and make it profitable. Dude, really? And so, you can kind of see that. It does make some sense. But I don't know what the hell he's attacking over there. Anyway, but as part of the economy and the problem that we've been having is inflation. Everybody's been hearing about how high our inflation is. Inflation. Where does inflation come from? The government. What? Yeah. Inflation is wholly an anchor around the economy when it comes to inflation, because they're spending money that they didn't earn, that they didn't create something, they didn't sell something. They just come up with this money. And if they need more money, what do? They just print it. We have a finite system of money. It has value because the government says it does. And she's even yelling at her dog, hey, shut the hell up. It has value only because the government says it does. We're not on the gold or silver standard anymore. I think we probably should be, but that's another monetary conversation that would take way too long, and I'm not prepared for it. But anyway, Milton Friedman, who I adore. Oh God rest him. He's gone on. He's running the bank up in the sky. He said that inflation was the largest tax on the American people. And he was a brilliant thinker, a brilliant economic mind. Go to YouTube and put in Milton Friedman pencil, and you'll see the video about him explaining what all it takes to make a pencil. Just the old wooden with an eraser on the end of it pencil. Those ones that you can buy like 10 for $1, 20 for $1, something like that. It's amazing. That's what really kind of opened my eyes on all of this economic stuff, because you just don't think about it until somebody sits down and explains it to you in a certain way. But the more the government spends, the higher the inflation. And our government knows how to spend. We are currently $32 trillion in debt, and we're spending $1 trillion or $2 more than the tax we take in every year. That's why Trump has brought in Elon and Vivek, even though they're not going to be government employees, they're not going to have any particular power. They're going to be providing information. This is what we found. This is where you need to cut waste. This is where you're spending too much, whatever. This department is not necessary. Harris would have continued the same policies that Biden had, which meant more borrowing, higher taxes, tax and spend, money you can't pay back. She kept talking about an opportunity economy, but she never could really explain what the hell that was. Well, I can't either. She would try and explain it in these wide platitudes about, everybody would have the opportunity to live the American dream. Like, all right, but what does that mean? And then she came out with the, we're going to give African American males an additional $25,000 to start a business. So now you're buying their votes. Well, it didn't work. I'm not sure they'd have gotten the $25,000. But it's all fantasy, which kind of brings me to my next point of why she lost. And that is the whole transgender debate. The average American parent does not want their daughter in a bathroom or a locker room with somebody that just thinks they're a woman, a biological male. I said years ago, it's in this century, but years ago, we are in 2024, that once the gay rights thing was pretty much set, which is all right. I mean, you love who you love. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. But I said the next thing on the horizon is going to be transgenderism and then pedophilia. And that's where we are. They've already been harping on the transgender thing for about the last 4 or 5 years. And now you're starting to see people giving speeches about how these people are normal because they love underage people. No, it's not right. No. Stay away from the kids. That's what the average parent's going to say. I don't want somebody that's bald with lipstick, a dress, and high heels on standing up to pee in the girls' restroom. No. I don't care what you do inside the comfort of your own home, but not around my kids. I followed the science. And the science says biological male is not a female. This is not about feelings. This is about science. Follow the science, right? That's what we were told. Follow the science. Climate change, COVID, follow the science. All right, well, follow the science. If you pluck a hair off of that dude, or you sample his blood or his bone or his fingernails or anything else, and you run it through the system, what it's going to come out as? Male. Additionally, there are a lot of progressive feminists that are now kind of in a quandary because they feel like they have to support the transgenders. But if they support the transgenders, they're going to end up hurting the biological females. So they're like, well, shit, what do I do? Young girls, teenagers, college students are losing opportunities to biological males because they're bigger, stronger, faster than the biological females are. Now, all the experts say, oh, but we have testosterone blockers. That fixes it. That makes them a woman. No, it doesn't. Here's some facts you may not have heard on the news, especially on the LSD, NBC, Clinton News Network, Old Gray Lady, any of those. You hadn't heard this. All right. A biological female. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I do know how to read, and I do know how to comprehend what I read. Biological female's heart is, and I mean the actual organ, is about 2/3 the size of a biological male's. Dramatic pauses while I puff on my wonderful Macanudo Gold Label cigar. Additionally, biological females have smaller blood vessels. They're narrower. And they have 10% less red blood cells. What the fuck is that? Sorry. But if Megyn Kelly can say the F word on live stream, so can I. Biological males typically have a larger trachea, and I had to write this stuff down because there's no way I could remember this kind of stuff. They have a larger trachea, bronchi in the lungs, and larger lung size from birth. And males have a 10 to 20% larger lung capacity. So what does this all mean? It means that biological males can take in more air, can transfer oxygen from that air to more red blood cells and pump this oxygen-rich blood to their extremities faster and at higher quantities, volumes, whatever, than a biological female can. This makes biological males bigger, stronger, faster. Another dramatic pause. And none of that is changed by testosterone blockers. It does not make their heart smaller. It does not make their lungs bigger or smaller. It does not reduce the amount of red blood cells they have. Bigger, stronger, faster. Go ahead and read the Peyton McNabb story. Peyton was a volleyball player in North Carolina in her senior year. She was forced to play a team that had a biological male on it. This biological male spiked the ball directly into her face. Probably saw this if you watch Fox News. You probably wouldn't have saw it on NBC MSNBC, all those any of those other places. I think Elon needs to buy MSNBC. I think it'd be a great deal. Give Fox some competition, because Newsmax and OANN, One America News, just really hasn't done it. But of course, they got pretty much deplatformed, and maybe that will change. I like Newsmax. I like One America News, but the only place I can get it is Tubi, or Pluto. Anyway, at the time when she was injured, she's laying on the floor and she was in some sort of, I can't remember what the name of the pose or position was, but it was a position that indicated she had had neurological damage. She's laying there on the ground. She was knocked out cold for 30 seconds. She looks across the court through the net, and the biological male player and all of his teammates are sitting over there laughing that she was down. And her coach and her trainer didn't really think that it was that bad, that her injury was that bad. You get up and go play, right? Well, as it turns out, it was pretty serious. She has neurological impairments, vision problems, partial paralysis on her right side, and a traumatic brain injury. But let's go ahead and let the biological males dress up and pretend they're women and play against the biological females in sports. Not a problem, right? F it, right? Well, we don't want to hurt their feelings. It's okay if we lose a few girls along the way for traumatic brain injuries. That's okay. But let's not make the transgender people feel bad, right? I'm sorry. This is the progressive agenda. It's not going to wash with me. Biological males should not be competing against biological females. Full stop. Nothing else needs to be said. Yet, this is one of the things that Kamala Harris would have pushed. She even said on the campaign trail, everybody needs to be treated well. Everybody deserves a chance. Oh, the opportunity. The opportunity. Yeah, you effing lost because most of the country doesn't agree with you. If she would have been elected, that's what you would have had. You'd have had more of these bald-headed, mustache, lipstick wearing, dress wearing, high heel wearing, luggage stealers. That's what you'd have had. The same people are going to be back in charge January 20th. And they better do a good job or we're going to vote their asses out too. I'm a libertarian. I don't give a damn. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. You do what's in the best interest of the people. That doesn't necessarily mean what's in the best interest of some of the weirdos out there. Now, that doesn't mean that the people that object to these policies hate transgenders. I don't hate trans. I've actually been to a drag show. It was a long time ago. It was funny as hell. But I was a little worried. I'm like, I hope nobody thinks that I'm, no, I'm all biological male. So, but I remember one person was dressed up as, I can't remember her name. Not Dionne Warwick, but an African-American singer that was really big in the 70s and early 80s. Anyway, he's out there doing his thing. And he gets down on all fours and he slaps his hand on the stage. And I think 6 or 7 of his fake nails went flying all over the place. I died laughing. It was funny. I didn't mind going. Didn't bother me. My now ex-wife drugged me there. But anyway, I stayed right next to her too, as much as I didn't like her. Stay right there with her. I don't want anybody thinking that, no. What is it that Tone Loc says? Ain't down with no Oscar Mayer wiener. Nope. Which kind of leads me into the next, and probably my final point here, and that is people were getting tired of hearing about DEI. Oh shit, what does it stand for? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I went blank for a second. That's why I love this. It's actually a teleprompter thing that I use, and I talk into it and put down what I'm going to say, and then that keeps me on point. Not always, but it does a pretty good job of it. But we have seen over the last few years, especially woke companies and the federal government go all in on DEI. And yeah, I work for Big Brother. I don't really talk about who I work for, all that kind of stuff, because I value my job. I love what I do. I can retire in just a few years, and I want to keep it that way. But over the last few weeks, we have seen, since the election, more and more companies rejecting those policies. Bud Light doesn't seem to be doing anything with that transgender person anymore. Walmart has come out and said that they're going to distance themselves from this stuff. There's several of the major corporations around the country, and I'm pretty sure when Trump gets in office, he's going to do away with a lot of this in the government. Hopefully, Pete Hegseth, hey, Mama's home. Hopefully, Pete Hegseth makes it through the Senate to be the next Secretary of Defense, and he will be dismantling these initiatives in our nation's military. Hallelujah. We are the best trained and most well-equipped military in the world. One of the things that makes our military so great is that everyone is really treated the same. You wear the same uniform, you have the same expectations, you're trained the same. But if transgenders are getting to wear what they want or have some sort of special considerations, or most especially have the Department of Defense pay for their transgender, that diminishes all of these policy norms. We really shouldn't have some dude from the Navy dressing up in drag and going and trying to recruit other, if you want to serve this nation's military, you serve it the way everybody else serves it. Continuity is what makes us, it's part of what makes us so great. It was bad enough when it was just the fact that we had people that couldn't meet the minimum score on the ASVAB. But now, all right, when I got in, it was like 1991, the minimum score on the ASVAB was like 41. I think I scored 119. And I don't even know what the top score was. But I was joining the Navy. It was a active duty reserve position where I was actually in the reserves, but I worked on active duty. And there was like a half a dozen different career fields available. Supply, gunner's mate, boiler technician, mess cook. And I'm like, well, that gunner's mate sounds pretty good, but I don't know that I can do that I can use that on anything out in the real world. I definitely don't want to be a cook, and I sure as hell don't want to be messing with boilers. I'll take supply. So I'm in about, Navy was 8-week boot camp. I'm in about the third or fourth week, and the dude, shit ass dog, the lead company commander, Michael Camardo, he was a hard ass. Ooh, he was calling everybody into his office, kind of get to know you, talk about your file a little bit, that kind of stuff, So he brings me in, and he's talking to me, and he's like, "You took ship serviceman?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Why?" I said, "Well, they offered me gunner's mate, boiler tech, mess technician. They did offer me radio operator, which I didn't think I had the hearing for it." I said, "So the best one I thought was, ship serviceman." He's like, "Did your recruiter tell you that you qualified for nuclear power school?" Dramatic pause. "No, he didn't mention that." "Well, you did. You could have gotten into nuclear power school." Well, fuck. That's when I determined you do not trust recruiters. They will lie to you to make their numbers. They don't care. All they care about is getting your name on that line and getting you through MEPS. And once you have that ticket in your hand and you're headed to boot camp, they're done. They don't give a shit after that. So, but everybody was treated the same. But now, you're like, okay, well, do you take the biological males? Do you put them in a female? Because everything was separated by gender. You didn't have integrated, and this is back then, I don't know what they do now, but you didn't have integrated companies for recruit training. You had men and women. Well, what do you do with all the transgenders? I don't know. But The minimum score at the ASVAB was 41. They have now lowered the minimum score. Dramatic pause. Well, how's that working for them? Yeah, the minimum score now is 29. You're like, holy shit, that's like 2/3. Yeah. And they still have people that the Army now has a special ed camp for people that couldn't make a 29 on the ASVAB. And they have a fat camp for people that can't pass a PT test and need to lose weight. And some people are having to go to both camps. And finally, here as I'm wrapping it up, people were also upset about the weaponizing of the legal system against Donald Trump, even if they didn't like Donald Trump. I don't know how many people I saw that they're like, I don't like his ego, or I don't like what he says, I don't like how he says things, but this is wrong. You should not be using the legal system to try and get rid of your political opponents. That's fascism. Yeah, it is. They were determined to do everything possible to keep Trump from sniffing the White House again, but they failed. New York Attorney General Letitia James, she ran on, if you vote me in, I will put Trump in prison. That was her campaign. And she won. She took one misdemeanor account, turned it into 34 misdemeanor accounts, and then attached it to, because the statute of limitations had already run on the misdemeanors, she attached it to a federal election law and turned the one misdemeanor into 34 felonies. Dramatic pause while you digest that. And of course, they have court in New York City, which is only 90% Democrat. And she got him convicted of these 34 felonies. And his fine was over $500 million. Do I believe that this case is going to end up being set aside? Yeah, I do. All the ashes off my tablet keyboard. Jack Smith's 2 cases, the January 6th case in D.C. and the documents case down in Florida, they've already been withdrawn. They're basically gone. Trump's legal team has filed an article with the Georgia State Court of Appeals looking to have that case thrown out. Oral arguments were scheduled to have been next month in December, but they came out this last week and said we're not even going to have those. I have a feeling they're going to set that aside too. They're going to step in and just set that case aside, even though Fani Willis was just reelected, and she has remained defiant and steadfast that she's going to continue to prosecute this case. Even it may end up costing her legal career before it's all over with. The Democrat has been their own worst enemy. They operate just inside their bubbles. They only hear the positions that they want to hear. They don't hear anything else. They can't fathom that most of the American people doesn't want unfettered immigration, doesn't want biological males in female restrooms or locker rooms, doesn't want a judicial system that is weaponized against political opponents. And this is all something that the left has accused Donald Trump of. He's a fascist. He's a dictator. But who's doing it? They are. The left are fascists. They want to rule with an iron hand. But they can't, because